tip of the tongue in the teeth.
AOC sees a O, and she sees the seashore ocean.
AOC sees the OA.
The show.
Yeah.
AOC sees the show. AOC sees the AO show. The OA show.
Crispy.
Cribbed some crispy, crinkly.
Rice Krispies.
Crispies.
Christie's cribbed some Krispies.
Marco Rubio marked a rube and O.
Marco Rubio ruined Mark.
Michael Pence picked a penis.
And he loved it.
And he loved it.
It's so weird to think that Mike Pence's first name is Michael. I never think of him as Michael Pence, except for Borat.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got it.
I've earned everything I've got. Yeah, good.
Mr. Gorbachev.
You didn't build that.
Mr. Gorbachev.
Yeah, good.
Tear down this wall.
Your favorite president?
Tear down this wall.
I can see Russia from my house. Pokemon go to the polls.
Ask not. Yeah, good.
What your country.
You did say well.
What?
Hello, welcome to a new episode of A Chicken and Every Pod.
The show where the chickens are hot and the pods are on.
And the bods are hotter. Recording to you live from an undisclosed location, Pod Loft Mark II. That's right, we are in our emergency, Wall Street's crashing, Y2K
bunker.
This is our pod bunker. Recording from our pod bunker in an undisclosed location.
When the Dow is down, we clown underground.
That's so right. Coming to you live from an undisclosed location in the American Southwest. This is Redacted and Every Redacted.
With Kyle McDagdid.
and an operative known only as the Sicilian. Hi, everybody. Thank you for all listening.
Yeah, we are so glad to be continuing our new year of shows.
New year, new shows.
And you know what, Kyle? I think a new year calls for some new branding.
Some new Brandon.
Some new imagery.
Some new imagery.
Well, fortunately, we have the amazing artist of Ashlyn Anstee of Los Angeles, California. She has drawn us some new podcast art.
What?
To replace our previous logo, which is Kyle wearing a American, like
a plastic Bud Light, red, white, and blue cowboy hat.
Yeah, in a Walmart. Mm-hmm. Wearing like a Coors shirt.
Or a Coors t-shirt, yeah.
Very confusing.
Mixing brands.
And me dressed as Hillary from our election night show. It was very sad. So that was our like placeholder imagery, and now we have a new like sort of logo design.
And it's really incredible. I mean, Ashlyn, thank you so much. It looks amazing.
Yeah, she's amazing. We actually just did a podcast with her for a grand party.
That's
with
right.
Grant Party. That's also her husband. And she did the art for him also. So she's just, if you need podcast art, give her money. She's amazing. And you can find her on Instagram at ASHLYN, Ashlyn with a Y, Anstee, ANSTEE.
And we'll include that link in the show description as well.
Yeah, and when you check out our new art, which features us,
that's right.
Features a chicken in a pot, and Penelope Pumpkin Spice, our unofficial third host.
Penelope Podcast Spice.
Yes.
Penelope Podcast host.
So thank you so much. We're really excited.
Yeah, we love it.
And just excited about all the new listeners and subscribers.
And we're also announcing a more regular release schedule, with the exception of today. We will be releasing on Saturdays.
Yeah, that's the plan.
The plan
You know.
is Saturday afternoons, but sometimes things happen.
Life happens.
Life comes at you fast.
Life's a beach.
Life's a beach, and then you die. We were going to record this yesterday, but we had the good fortune of instead being able to take Lucia's mom to get her round 1 COVID-19 vaccine.
Yeah.
At Six Flags Magic Mountain.
It was like we had to just take that opportunity. California has a very not great vaccine system right now. Still better than Florida, apparently, where they're still kind of like pre-signing people up, I just read. But luckily I was able to go on the California Gov vaccine site over and over, going back and forth, refilling out the same stuff until I finally found a little spot for her at Six Flags. First time she's ever been to Six Flags. Just seeing the roller coasters made her nauseous.
Yeah.
It was about a 2-hour experience, which really wasn't that bad. Faster than some amusement park experiences.
Yeah.
All the volunteers were so sweet, and right after you get the shot, they have you wait for 15 minutes to, as one volunteer named Latasha said, see if you have any side effects, grow any horns. And my mom, she just has a sore arm, but besides that, she feels good. So definitely please look into your vaccines, and also, try to advocate for some better vaccine plans and policies in your area so that high-risk people can get it. Like, I recommend the hashtag #HighRiskCA, where a lot of disabled people of all ages are like, hey, I can't wait till June for my vaccine. And a lot of people that work as essential workers that have not been able to get it. So, we're not fans of Gavin Newsom right now.
No, this is an anti-Gavin podcast.
Yeah, sorry about that to any Gav heads.
Yeah, hey, if you're a Gav head,
A Gabby Gaver.
step along. Keep it moving.
Keep it
if you're
moving.
a Gav head.
Yeah, move on down the sidewalk that is filled with Los Angeles diners right now.
That having been said, that having been gaved, I do want to mention the recall, the recall campaign against Gavin Newsom, which I am perfectly happy with. I think that resign bitch.
Yeah.
One of the leaders of it, who is also running, if there is a recall, is somebody that I'm not a huge fan of, and I think is trying to pull one over on Californians a little bit.
Oh, no.
And so I want to say a word of warning about Chamath Palihapitiya, who is a Silicon Valley billionaire.
Oh, no.
Who is...
Unlike Gavin Newsom, a Silicon Valley, wine sommelier lawyer guy.
Yeah. Joanna Newsom's cousin. So Chamath is a Silicon Valley investor who is helping to spearhead the recall campaign. He's running for governor himself.
Is he
I believe he's a Democrat.
Democrat?
I believe he's a Democrat. And he is running rhetorically in a lot of ways to Newsom's left. He just was on a stream with AOC, Twitch streaming.
Oh, jeez.
To talk about the Robinhood stuff, which we're also going to talk about here.
Okay.
But there's some things in his platform that are fine, but there's also stuff like lowering the state tax to 0%. Which in combination with a very carefully considered alternative tax code is something that I think people could be open to. But on its own, not so much. Also, he's very fond of the school voucher system, basically privatizing California's education system. So there's a lot of tech bro stuff that I think he's trying to smuggle in.
Redefine what it means to do these things.
Exactly. And so just word of warning from your pal Kyle, that Newsom's bad. I'm perfectly happy to recall him, but don't just settle for nothing.
Yeah.
Don't just settle for the first pretty face that comes along, smiling, laughing.
And remember that just because it is complicated to handle the pandemic, to even handle the sudden Black Lives Matter, defund the police. I understand being like, well, Newsom just had all this stuff thrown on him. But the thing is, Newsom has been bad for a long time. Yeah. He handled the first beginning of the rollout in California pretty well. But
we just also were lucky that we didn't get hit hard.
Yeah, we didn't
early
get
on.
hit hard compared to the East Coast. And then also it's like we sort of quarantined immediately, but like we didn't have like accessible rent relief. There was still, weird, people getting parking tickets. There was still, no PPE when there needed to be. And there's just a lot of campaign promises that he hasn't followed through on anyway. Like he ran on promising he was going to shut down Aliso Canyon, which in California, it's this huge gas leak that happened that killed people, and people still have side effects from it.
They get nosebleeds.
Yeah, and like
shit.
he promised he was going to shut it down, and everyone kind of forgot about it, and it's still a risk. So it's like, yeah, just screw this guy. Like, just because he's got his American Psycho pretty face doesn't mean that we need to be stuck with him.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of like what's,
So that's the local update, local corner.
Yeah.
I think, unless you have anything else you want to talk about, that we should get into our subject for our episode, because it's both complicated. I'm sure you'll have lots of questions, and I'm sure I'll have some answers. But also, it's your birthday eve as we're recording this, and we should get this bad boy in the can so you can party.
Yeah, I can shake my cans.
So you can shake that can.
Whether it's the top cans or the bottom cans.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're going to talk today about Wallstreet
That's right.
and Robinhood.
That's right. The terror of Nottingham himself. Mr. Robinhood. Mr. Robert Hood, as some historians think may have been the basis for Robinhood. That's right. We're going to talk about Wall Street. We're going to talk about the two most famous crashes on Wall Street, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Robinhood Gamestop stuff.
Wow, but Kyle, how does any of that connect with, like, U.S. history, politics, government? Like, isn't there, like, separation of state and bucks?
There is a separation of state and bucks, and technically Wall Street has no formal connection to the United States government.
But it's so, like, how come our politicians are always protecting Wall Street if it's just a street with a wall?
Well, because money talks. And the people walk on.
And a chicken box. Bark, bark.
Separation of state and box.
Yeah.
Actually, there's even more of a separation of state and bucks because the Federal Reserve, which prints our money, is also not part of the U.S. government.
Which is really weird.
That'll be a different episode.
Okay.
Okay, so before we get into the history of Wall Street, the Wolf of Wall Street, Wall Street 2, Money Never Sleeps.
Mm-hmm. The she-wolf of Wall Street. That's what we need, girls.
We need a Shakira of Wall Street.
Domesticated street. That's all you ask of me. Okay, continue.
We need to talk about what they do on Wall Street.
Okay.
Before we get into the history of it, the different definitions, whatever, the very simple idea of a financial market.
Okay.
Do you know anything about a financial market?
No. When I picture all of it, I picture the episode of the Rugrats where they're picturing being adults and they're just pushing with like big push brooms money around a room.
Yeah, that's not wrong.
And then someone calls and they say like, put corner on barley, and then everybody puts their money on barley, and then barley stocks go up.
That's actually
literally
pretty
stocks
accurate.
of barley.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're not going to get too into the weeds of the different what are called securities that are traded in financial markets because it's very complicated and a lot of it doesn't matter that much. Any entity that's sold on a financial market is called a security, just so you know. Now, there's two main kinds of securities that most stock exchanges use. They are stocks and bonds. Now, a stock is literally an ownership stake in a company.
Okay.
So basically, when a company needs to raise money beyond what it can do just from its buying and selling, it'll start selling off small amounts of ownership stake in it.
We should do what some economists do in their classroom, or at least what I know from the film Back to School, where they have like a fake company that we use in our examples. What should our company be?
Amalgamated ass.
Okay.
So
AA.
AA.
Okay, cool.
It's AA on the stock exchange.
Like so stocks would be like if you want to own a piece of that Amalgamated Ass.
Exactly. And if you are the CEO of Amalgamated Ass,
Which I am.
which you are, then let's say you're at a point where you're beyond the startup phase. People are buying your ass. But you need more money. You need another round of investment because you want to expand. Maybe you want to open up an amalgamated tits. You want to have a new branch of your company, right?
Yeah.
So what you would do is you set up what's called an IPO, an initial public offering. And when this is set up, it basically allows stock investors, as well as the public, to come in and start buying ownership in your company.
Stock investors are technically the public.
Yeah, they're people. They're just
Okay.
people. The alternative, if you're a private company, not a public company, the alternative is that you and your immediate investors own all the shares, and nobody can come in and just buy them from you. You don't automatically get listed on the stock exchange. You have to go public in order for that to happen.
Okay.
So when you first started Amalgamated Ass, it was just you and me, your angel investor, your silent partner. And we owned all the shares. But so now we need more money to expand. So you have your IPO, and now you're a public company. And stock investors and stock brokers, people like that, they can now buy and sell shares of ownership in your company. The price of those shares is the famous line that goes up and down on the stock exchange. When you see like, oh, it's tanking, that means the price of the share is going down. Price per share. And when it's going up, it means the price per share is going up. And the idea is the more valuable your company is, the more your company is expected to make money in the future, basically, then the higher price the stock will be. So if it's expected that your company is going to become a $6 billion company, if they think Amalgamated Ass is the next Amazon,
Which it is.
then your stocks could be $700-800 a share, right?
Okay.
And that's a ton. If Amalgamated Ass is seen as the next GameStop, where people don't think it has much of a future, then it could be a couple dollars a share. And so what people try to do, the way you make money on the stock market, is you pay close attention to trends in the market. And when it's low, when the price is low, you buy up shares of a company in the hopes that the price will then go up. And
Which is why people say, like, I wish that I had invested in Apple.
Exactly. If you
Back
invested in
when it
Apple
was-
in 1990, by 2010, you could have been a millionaire.
And
just
if you
by
wanted
owning
to
that.
invest in Apple now, you'd have to be really rich to do
You
that.
you can buy partial shares. So you can invest like $20 into Apple, but you get like 0.01 shares. But so yeah, the idea is that you buy low, sell high. The idea is you buy a bunch when it's low, and then when the price goes up, you then sell it.
When we buy low,
They sell high.
They sell high.
And that's how you make money in
Okay.
the stock market. So that's stocks. Bonds are it's a much simpler process.
okay.
A bond is basically an entity going into debt to you. So if I buy a bond for $1,000, the idea is that I give the bond to the company, the bondholder. I give them $1,000. They give me a bond. Well, it actually used to be a physical thing they'd give you. And what this bond means is that you're going to collect 20% interest for the next 10 years. And when that's done, you get your money back plus interest from the bondholder. A certificate of deposit is very similar. It's a very similar idea. Is you're basically giving them all this money, and the reason you can't touch it is because they're taking that money and investing it elsewhere. And they'll return it back to you plus interest at the end of your arranged period.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what a bond is. Those are the two main things that financial markets deal in, are stocks and bonds. And they're all investments, right? They're all forms of investment. So the history of this system, this stock system, is obviously a little murky. There are some historians who think that there were primitive versions in ancient Rome or in Renaissance Italy, things like that, where there was kind of early mercantilist buying and selling. But the first modern stock exchange was developed in the 17th century, the 1600s, in the Netherlands. Is the Amsterdam Stock Exchange.
Oh, dang.
And the Dutch East India Company may have been one of the first companies to offer stock buying and selling and ownership shares. So it's a Dutch innovation.
So when you go to a restaurant, you say, let's go Dutch.
Yeah. You're both investing in your appetizers. In Amalgamated Ass, if you didn't know. And Wall Street itself was, like much of Manhattan, founded by the Dutch.
Oh, yeah. When you go to New York, a lot of the things are named like the Dutch guy driveway.
The Dutch guy driveway.
Parkway. And
Yeah.
A lot of the...
Yeah, you see a lot of names like Stuyvesant and things like that are all Dutch. Wall Street itself, it probably does not refer to a wall. It probably comes from Dutch. There's one of two things. One is that it may have actually come from the word for wall, which is Wall
Wallstreet.
Because there was a rampart that was built at the north side of Wall Street back in the day to keep natives away, basically.
Oh, shit.
But it was usually spelled W-A-A-L Street in its early years.
Street.
Wall. Which is...
Like Wallowee.
Like wow!
Wow.
Which is the Dutch word for Walloon, which sounds like an old-timey slur.
What's Walloon?
But a Walloon is an ethnic group from Belgium,
Oh, okay.
basically. So, yeah, it would be like Chinese street or something.
Okay.
So that's the most likely is that it comes from that. And it just became Wall Street because that's the word in English, wall. So the New York Stock Exchange, which is one of the main entities that operates on Wall Street today, which, like I was just saying, is basically a place where people come to buy and sell stocks and bonds. That's it. Wall Street as a term just refers to this one street where a bunch of banks and stock exchanges were housed. So it's like Broadway, right? The New York Stock Exchange was more or less founded in 1792 under a buttonwood tree on Wall Street with an agreement called the Buttonwood Agreement. That basically a bunch of stockbrokers, like 24 or 25 stockbrokers, came together and agreed to basically deal with each other only and under certain conditions of exchange rates and things like that. And that was basically the foundation of the New York Stock Exchange, 1792. And since then, it just, kept getting bigger and bigger, right? Because as these companies grew and as industrialization grew, these companies needed money. They needed investments, and that's where you'd get an investment. So I would not go so far as to say that Wall Street, at its core, doesn't do anything. Wall Street can be an extremely important source of investment for companies that want to expand and grow and stay alive. That's good. That's a good thing. It's what happened with it later, when it began to innovate in itself and grow into something else, that it became less of a good thing. There were actually early socialists that were very into the stock market. Marx himself bought and sold some stocks. In the late 19th, early 20th century, there were some socialists who saw it was not the mainstream view, but there were socialists that saw the stock market as the mechanism for democratizing capital.
Like people can make their own decisions.
They felt like this is how we'll have the workers own the companies, own the means of production, is we'll just buy ownership stock of the company and the workers can have it.
Like, isn't there a movement, an idea of like people that work at a company basically, like if they could, it would be good for the workplace if they basically were invested in a part of it.
Yeah, that's one of the ideas of workplace democracy.
Yeah,
still,
workplace democracy.
Is the idea that part of the remuneration would be ownership stake in the company, and also that if the company has a corporate board, they would have to have a representation from the workers on it. And
so it's like less like workers should be trying to improve the business because they make more money, and more that they're working towards something that benefits them as well, and not just some boss.
Exactly, that was the idea.
That they're very disconnected from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is the way, especially as capital becomes financialized, this could be a way to get workers in on the steal.
Stop the steal.
You just gotta stop the steal. So basically the high point of the stock market until like the 80s probably was the early 20th century. The early 20th century, simply roaring.
Yeah.
Your Rockefellers and your Morgans and your...
Meet the Morgan. No, what was that movie? It was like a
Meet
Sarah
the
Jessica Parker.
Yeah.
It's like, what's up with the Morgans?
Yeah, it's like, what's the deal with the Morgans?
What's the deal with the Morgans?
Something like that.
Wait, I feel like before we get into the Roaring 20s, what's the... I feel like this should be like racist corner. Like, what's the, the racist aspects of the origins of Wall Street? Because when you're like, it was pretty good, it's like, but
what I meant, I'm not saying Wall Street is pretty good. I want to amend that. What I mean is that the idea of buying and selling ownership stock of a company is an idea with some merit. Mm-hmm. Because that's, again, a good source of investment and even democratization if you do it right. Wall Street itself, of course, began as a slave market in New York City. That was the first buying and selling that they were doing there, which I didn't have in my timeline. I forgot to include it because it doesn't have to do with what Wall Street actually does. I mean, it does, but I was specifically doing the history of the New York Stock Exchange. But yeah, originally Wall Street was a place where there was a famous slave auction in Manhattan.
Jesus Christ.
People act like the North didn't sell and buy slaves. They did. They just weren't as into it.
Yeah. There's a great song in 1776 called Molasses to Rum to Slaves.
That's right.
And it's about the North being hypocrites, acting like they don't participate in the triangle trade.
Oh yeah, they were all implicated in this.
And it's an awesome song. Watch it on YouTube. Great song. It explains it.
So
I feel like the Dutch don't have a great track record of
the Dutch are very
liking
racist.
black people.
Famously racist.
Famously racist.
You know who gets off easy when we talk about the triangle trade?
Who?
The Dutch, obviously.
Yes.
But also the Portuguese.
Yeah.
The Portuguese, the Crown of Portugal, founded the transatlantic slave trade. They started it.
Portugal is not the man.
Portugal's not the man. Portugal sucks. Portugal's canceled. That's what history said.
Okay,
That's
so
why
we're canceling Portugal and
the Dutch.
The Dutch.
As a people, yeah. Because you know what, Lidge? To quote a great
I
film,
was gonna do this.
there's only two types of people I don't like in this world. Those that are intolerant of other people's cultures and the Dutch. So... Stupid. Okay, so... Wall Street was firing on all cylinders going into the 20s. Mm-hmm. Indeed, it is what made the Roaring 20s roar. People were making money hand over fist. Line was going up. Line's always going to go up. Line's going up forever.
Everyone's just, doing coke and opium like it's normal.
Yeah.
Dancing all night.
Yeah, they were putting cocaine in their children's drinks.
Yeah.
Selling heroin over the counter.
They're having lots of fun.
They were loving it.
It was great. And we are in the roaring 20s of the 2000s right now.
That's right. It's all going to be Dogecoin fueled instead of the stock market. And then in 1929, The Hangover came. Everybody woke up. Yeah, that's when The Hangover came out. The original.
The Wolf Pack of Wall
German
Street.
expressionist.
Oh.
That's funny. The Wolf Pack of Wall Street. The Great Crash, 1929.
Should we put in a crash sound?
That's exactly what a crash sounds like.
Okay.
The famous tripartite crash sound.
Yeah, proceed.
So the causes of the crash in 1929, which is what precipitates the Great Depression.
The murdering of Archduke Franz Ferdinand.
That's right. By Gavrilo Princip.
Started everything. Yeah.
Long echo effects of the murder of Franz Ferdinand. Basically, there was a lot of different ideas about what happened. It's complicated. There was a commission called the Pecora Commission that was put together by Congress to look into it in the early 30s.
I love chicken pakora, vegetable pakora, all breaded Indian foods. Okay.
Pecora. It basically found that, so the way that markets really collapse, the basic mechanism, is just everybody sells their shit. If a bunch of people own stock in Amalgamated
And then
Ass,
they sell it,
and they all sell it,
Ass owes them.
they don't owe them.
Well,
but it's that
they have to pay.
if they're selling it, then the market starts to think it's actually not worth that much anymore. So the value goes down of your stock price. Because if everyone's selling it, then the presumption is there's nothing left to get out of it.
They'd sell it if they kind of want to cut their losses and run.
Exactly.
Okay.
So as people sell off, the price goes down. And if the price keeps going down, what happens to the people that didn't sell off? They lose all their money. Because what they may have bought when it was worth $5 and they got up to $10, now it's down to $1.
Oh, no.
They've lost a ton of money.
It's a lot of dollars.
And there's no way to get it back.
Yeah.
Because ultimately an investment is a gamble, right? You're gambling the company will do well.
Yeah.
And so what happens if... It's like a run on the bank from
It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, exactly. So basically when that happens market-wide, everything starts collapsing. The value of everything starts collapsing.
If everyone takes the
Everyone starts
money
taking
out of the
money
bank, then the bank
Exactly.
doesn't have any...
And then the money
thing
that's
to
left
work
in
with.
there gets totally devalued.
Yeah.
And so even the people that do try to stay in the market, they lose all their money. Because the value of what they purchased is now less than when they purchased it.
And so who was president?
During the Mr. Herbert Hoover was
Mr. A
president.
Chicken in Every Pot.
That's right. Our boy, a chicken in every pot. He did the opposite. Quite the opposite. It's crazy that in the 1920s when a president who had no experience in the government, just business experience, decided to become the president, crashed the economy, and lost after one term. Actually, Hoover had a little bit of experience in the government. He was Secretary of Commerce. But so, still, Hoover's the closest analog to Donald Trump that we've had until now. So the Pecora Commission basically finds that there's a bunch of abusive tactics happening in the market. People that are selling and buying and selling shares of companies that aren't actually doing well to kind of profit off them illegally, moving money around.
Who started this commission?
Congress did.
Congress did. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is when... So
This is when the
because
government
this is
decides
affecting
we might have to
the
regulate
economy,
this.
the government's like,
Exactly.
we should regulate. We should
Until
have
this
a
point, it was
say.
all pretty hands-off.
Wow, okay. And that's why with the Civil War, it was like, hey, like, we should do something about slavery, and people were upset because it's like, that's not your business. This is our own business, basically.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean,
why should
there was a big
the
idea.
U.S. government have a say over
At least
if we buy and sell slaves.
At least the federal government, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They felt that a lot of these things should be states' issues. Or just not left to the government at all.
And so besides that, the government really wasn't stopping them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so now they have this commission to figure out what happened. And it led to a bunch of reforms.
By Hillary Clinton. What happened?
Yeah, what happened by Hillary Clinton. So there's three big things that they do. One is a series of laws called the Glass-Steagall Act.
Oh.
Very famous.
Okay. Named after people?
Yeah, after some senators, yeah.
Okay.
The co-signers of it. I forget their names, but they've kind of been lost to history. It's a couple different laws, but the most important idea is it separates banking. Now, it created basically two classes of banks, which are commercial banks and investment banks. An investment bank is one that buys and sells stocks in order to invest in companies, right? As the name implies. So if you're a stockbroker and you're buying and selling stuff on the market, you're buying and selling shares of Amalgamated Ass, you might be doing it on behalf of an investment bank who's doing it to increase their portfolio and hopefully profit off of their investments that they're making. And this becomes a large source for investment for people's money. Goldman Sachs is an investment bank. That's what they do.
Okay.
Is they invest in companies on the stock market.
Yeah.
Commercial banks is your Wells Fargo, your Bank of America, your whatever. That's a bank that deals with the public. And they are there mostly to hold your money and provide small loans. Housing loans, business loans, car loans later. That will then be paid back by you. That's the business model of a commercial bank. Glass-Steagall made it so that these had to be separate. Commercial banking and investment banking had to be kept separately. The reason why was because an element of the Great Depression, this is foreshadowing, an element of the Great Depression is normal people that put their money in the bank were having that money used by the investment branch of that bank to buy and sell stocks, which was a gamble, basically. So normal people were losing the money that they had invested at the bank because it had been stretched over their investment arm. That's one of the ways that regular people got fucked, even if they weren't involved in the stock market at all.
And for tinfoil hat hour, the like Goldman Sachs and a lot of the World Bank or like a lot of these banks.
The World Bank's a different thing, but yeah.
They were also like dealing with like international banking.
Oh yeah, a lot of these firms were funding the Nazis.
Yeah, we're funding the Nazis,
and the
funding
Bolsheviks, interestingly.
World War One.
Yeah.
And so it's like
It's all money making.
money making coming from American people
Mm-hmm.
being used for Nazis and other things,
Yeah.
and a lot of those people, those families are still in power and are totally legitimized.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like, what's the is it Rhodes, like the Rhodes Scholar?
Cecil Rhodes.
Cecil
I mean,
Rhodes.
he was long dead by this point.
Yeah, but like just a lot of the things
lot of
that
these
we see as
international-
prestigious,
Yeah.
Now a lot of them had Nazi ties.
We should do a Cecil Rhodes episode.
Yes, we
Because
should.
Cecil Rhodes and King Leopold II of Belgium should be remembered as Hitler-level monsters.
Yeah.
And they are not. We should really do one about what they did in Africa. That would be a really good topic. And the Rhodes Scholarship itself, how it was founded. So that's exactly right. Another thing they did was they started the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. This is the governing body that oversees the financial markets now. So if you're a company that does, if you're Enron, which is a company that went under for doing financial fraud, it's the SEC that catches you. And
Supposedly.
well, in Enron's case, they did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Supposedly, it's the SEC that runs up on George Bluth and the pilot of Arrested Development. Their job is to oversee financial crimes, basically, which didn't exist before 1933. And they also had the Securities Act of 1933, which basically is what gives the SEC its teeth. This made it so that every exchange done on the market had to be registered with the SEC.
Okay.
Which is still the case. Like there's regulations in the Robinhood app that you can't do certain things because of SEC rules.
Okay.
So this was the regulatory framework that Congress put in place.
During Hoover's administration.
This was mostly signed into place in the first couple months of FDR's administration.
Okay.
This was all early 1933. Literally a few weeks after he got in office. Most of this. So eventually the U.S. overcame the Great Depression. The stock market righted itself. People got money back. That's a very complicated story.
And we talk a little bit in our intro episode about Hoover, about Hoovervilles, which, you know, we basically have today people that can't afford places to live and don't have work, having to, like, live in little shanty towns and tent cities.
Trump Towers.
Trump Towers. Okay. So that's the new term. So check out that episode, and of course we'll go into, you know, more detail about all the other things.
Yeah.
In other
so
episodes.
There's a lot of economic debate about what to do with the Great Depression. The Keynesian model by John Maynard Keynes basically suggested the government should just spend money. Should just spend as much money as possible in order to get money back in the market. That it was a demand level problem, and that if people had money, then they could buy things, which is basically what we're looking at now, right?
With, like, cancel student debt.
Yeah, the idea is if we're having a problem in the economy with people not being able to afford things, then we should just give them money.
I mean, that's what a stimulus is supposed to do, is help stimulate the economy by giving people money. And a lot of really great, you know, observations have been from regular people have been like, hey, if you give me, like, $600, $2,000, that's just going to the credit card companies because I've been living on credit.
Exactly.
So it's not going back into the economy. People would be better off getting monthly stipends or substantial
to reinvest it
income, so that, like, if they want to buy the new PlayStation, they can. If they want to go out to dinner and support local restaurants, they can. If they want to, you know, buy a house or something. But if it's just, not that they could with that money, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If people had any type of liquidity.
Yeah. Perfect use of the word liquidity.
Thank you. I was pretty proud. It was pretty
that was good.
Loquacious. I was trying to.
Loquacious.
Yeah. You know, like, yeah, if people didn't, if any income people got wasn't just going to rent, medical bills, college debt, credit card bills, it's like, that's not going into the economy. That's going into some which fat cat's pockets.
Which Keynes would agree with. He would say the entire idea is you need, you know, the metaphor he used is that it's like an engine that is stalled and you just need to spark it. You need to get oil running back through the pipes. The conservative counterpoint to this is that
is Hayek.
Hayek, yeah, but he wasn't that mainstream at the time. But he was definitely a very eloquent voice for the conservative opposition. Famously in a rap battle video that
we strongly recommend.
That's
that
very cute.
Keynes and Hayek. Keynes.
Yeah.
And
Hayek.
Like Selma Hayek.
Yeah, actually.
Rap battle. It's very pleasant. Cute. It's a cute song.
The second one I like a lot. The first is okay. But so the conservative opposition, of which again Hayek was one of the more extreme examples, basically their argument was these kinds of crashes are due to malinvestments and poor decisions.
Yeah, just idiot
in the market,
like
idiocy.
So to them, it's that sort of bootstraps. Like
it is. Well, to them, it's like you have to let this hit the ground basically, or else you're bailing out bad decisions, and it's just going to keep.
That's the conservative.
Yeah, and they also are very concerned about inflation, which they're right to do. I mean, inflation's a very scary thing.
if a balloon gets too big,
It pops.
It pops.
I mean, that's
it
true.
ruins the parade.
It ruins the parade.
It's terrifying.
And so
It's loud.
So their concern was that if the government spends too much money, because the government literally creates money, but it doesn't peg value to money.
Can
right?
you explain inflation
That's
a
what I'm
little?
doing,
Okay,
yeah.
so
So basically,
I mostly know it from neopets.com.
so money gets its value more or less. I mean, the actual denominations of money obviously is decided by Congress, like $1, $5, $10. But what that can buy you,
$5, $10.
that's right.
I don't know. I'm an auctioneer.
Oh, okay.
I'll give you one. I don't know.
I was like, what's the? I like it. What's the bid?
I was trying to
I want a yes and bid.
trying to haggle with you over nothing.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it. So, the denomination is decided by Congress, but how much that actually buys you on the market at the store is usually decided by. It's a very complicated process.
Yeah.
But it changes, right?
So it's like milk might be $2, but
Exactly.
inflation might make milk $24.
I mean, yeah, that is exactly what could happen.
If
Because
cows die.
what happens with inflation is that as you add more money to the money supply, the value of the dollar starts to go down and the price of goods starts to go up because a dollar is worth less than it was before.
Okay.
So, and this is a normal process that happens over time. This is why movies used to be 25 cents in my day, because 25 cents
Could get a
25
lot
cents
of...
is worth less now than it was then.
Yeah.
So inflation does just happen over time because more currency is created and put to the system. And if it's kept at a reasonable level, it's fine.
And that's why
Because-
we are supposed to raise the minimum wage, because
So we kept up with inflation.
if people could live on
Yeah. Of course,
$7.25 an hour back then, that's one thing, but now...
the conservative argument against that is that will fuel inflation by increasing the amount of money being put
Yeah,
in
and to that I
artificially.
say, just go fuck yourself.
That's right. But so inflation's a real concern, especially when the government is just directly putting money into the system. And that was the concern about Keynesian solutions, is that,
We can't just be giving everyone money,
well, if you do that, the money
or
won't
we can't be
matter.
spending
Well,
a lot of money as a government.
Yeah, because it'll devalue the American dollar, which can become this quick cycle, right? Which is also, I mean, it's a concern people have when people talk about being against a UBI, because they're concerned that all of your landlords will just raise their rent and
Yeah,
suck it up.
if it's
That's
like-
basically
yeah.
inflationary. That's basically saying that they're worried that it'll inflate the price of rent by artificially increasing the amount of money that the rentiers can take.
And be like, oh, you're getting $2,000 stimulus every month? Okay, well now rent is an extra $1,000
Exactly.
or whatever.
Yeah, and that's basically a microcosm of the inflation process.
And we don't really have good regulations
There's not really a way to stop
on
that.
any... Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have protections from those...
Yeah.
From... I mean, except for places that have rent control. But
Which
they
has
still
its
have
own,
high property
has its own
values.
host of problems.
Yeah.
There's not an elegant solution that exists to this problem.
Not a final solution.
Yeah, that's right. Mao had a final solution for landlords. But so that was the concern, is inflation, which again is a problem. There are places in the world, I forget which country this was, but it had such dramatic inflation that like the prices of things would change throughout the day. Like,
Oh, yeah.
You'd have to go shopping in the morning because by the end of the day everything's more expensive.
Yeah.
And like that's a real bad place to be. I mean, Weimar era Germany had big inflation problems. Like, I don't want to under stress the importance of having a sound and consistent currency. I think it's the kind of thing that we in the U.S. take for granted because we've had the world currency for our entire lives.
Oh, it looks like it's in maybe Zimbabwe,
Could have been Zimbabwe, yeah.
and it happened in Germany too, I think.
Yeah, Germany was maybe the one I was
And
thinking.
the term hyperinflation, I
Yeah.
think, is the term. All right.
Yeah. That's when it gets like really, really bad. And yeah, I think we take for granted that. But I mean, look what happened to Greece. Greece basically collapsed because of inflation.
Yeah.
I mean, within the last 10, 15 years, that happened because they couldn't keep up with the rates of the euro, which they probably just shouldn't have been tied to. Hyperinflation is when it gets incredibly dramatic. And then in the 70s, we experienced stagflation, which is when certain markers were stagnating and others were inflating, which was a real problem for a while.
And is that around when credit cards began?
Yep. Became
Cool.
widespread. And when the financialization of industry began, which is a whole thing, financialization basically is kind of what we're talking about. It's the idea that the operative goal of a business should be to increase its stock price. That because before that wasn't the goal. Like it didn't
just to function, right?
It was just to provide whatever service it was providing. And if people happen to get rich off the price of your stocks going up, then that's great because those people are investing in your company. But starting in the 1970s, it became a lot more commonplace and a lot more common sense for people to operate their companies with the goal of inflating the stock price so that them and other stockbrokers and stockholders become very rich. Now, this is how you get stuff like Bain Capital, who basically would buy up struggling companies, run the stock price up by renovating all of it and flushing it with investment and then selling it off.
Jesus.
And letting the company die.
And
that is, of course, Mitt Romney's company.
Yeah, sort of like almost like house flipping, but of companies, kind of.
That's brilliant of you to bring up because it's almost exactly like house flipping, which is an activity that helped create the 2007-2008 financial crisis for the same reason.
Wow. And just for people listening, Bain Capital, Mitt Romney's company.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing in the 2012 election.
Yeah, 2012.
Was Obama versus, it feels like 40
Feels like a
years
lifetime
ago.
Yeah.
Obama versus Mitt Romney, and it was like, Mitt Romney says Russia's a threat. Mitt Romney says China's a threat. Mitt Romney, and also like Mitt Romney's part of Bain Capital, that's bad. Obama would never,
have bad economic
policies and cozy up to Wall Street. And then we all voted for Obama. And Mitt Romney is still hot.
Yeah, hotter than Obama. Yeah,
Obama's getting uglier. It's like one of them is the other's.
Picture of Dorian Gray. Yeah. So that's all that. In 1999, as
the Pokemon movie was
coming
out.
We were all having our wits scared out of us by the Sixth Sense and the multiplexes, preparing for Y2K. After the fall of the Soviet Union, the U.S. stock exchange was kicking ass. Right? It was the only game in town, really. Stocks were up, money was up, line goes up. And so in 1999, Congress repeals Glass-Steagall, or the main parts of Glass-Steagall.
And this is with Clinton.
Clinton signed off on it.
He's like,
we don't need these reforms. These are outdated. So basically, their argument is that these were legislative acts that were done to address a situation 65 years ago, and they're out of date now.
What could happen?
What could go wrong? Smash cut to about 8 years later, and the economy is collapsing again. The Great Recession starts. This is all covered in the film The Big Short. Margot Robbie in a bathtub will explain it to you if you see that film. But basically, what happens is very similar. People's normal investments get wrapped up in lenders like Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae.
Oh, because Glass-Steagall was keep these two banks separate.
And then Glass-Steagall was repealed.
So, like, Wells Fargo starts doing investment banking stuff.
They can't. It's more complicated than that, but basically, people's investments start getting all wrapped up in each other. And investment banks like Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, they start lending with basically the dividends of what are called subprime mortgages, subprime loans. A subprime loan is basically a loan. So, we got to talk loans for a second.
Okay.
When you get a loan, traditionally you have to apply for a loan. Do you know why you have to apply for a loan?
Because they have to see if you have good credit.
And why is that?
Because if they loan you something and you don't have a good credit history of paying people back, they don't feel like they can trust you?
Exactly, because they need to be paid back. Their entire business model is that we'll give you the money you need for your thing, and
pay us back with interest.
Pay back with interest. What the Bible condemns as usury and a sin. Which is the history of why, by the way, Jewish families in Europe became big banking families, because Christians weren't allowed to lend at interest and Jews could. Another thing, like their early history in Hollywood, that they were forced into doing because Christians wouldn't do it and then got blamed for later. Just an irony of history. But so, yeah, loans are given out, and the interest rate is usually pegged to both the availability of the money supply as well as your credit history, your ability as a lender. If you have a bad history of repaying loans, not so bad that they won't give it to you, but bad enough they don't really trust you, you get a higher interest rate.
Which is sad.
I mean, it just is what it is.
Okay.
They're basically gambling on you.
So
when somebody gives you a loan, they are betting on your success.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying, I bet you this much money that you'll be successful enough in whatever this endeavor is that you'll pay me back for it.
Yeah.
And so if they don't really trust you, then they basically have to say, they have to increase their odds. They have to make it more worth it for them to risk their money. That's where the higher interest rate comes from. And the Federal Reserve can change certain federal interest rates on their own, by the way, which is the whole thing. But so a subprime loan is a loan that is given out to a lender that at market value would not qualify for it. It's a loan that's basically underwritten by the rest of the company. And people did this especially with houses. And what happens is, unfortunately, a lot of these people default on their loans. And when they default on their loans, the company that lended it is not getting that money back. Mm-hmm. And if enough people do that to a lender, the lender goes out of business. They're not liquid anymore. They don't have money anymore. Mm-hmm. They're not receiving their money back. It's a common conservative thing to complain about the people that took out these loans, but it has since been pretty well established that most of these loans were given out in predatory fashion, which is people were specifically sought out to take on bad loans.
I mean, that's the whole thing with credit cards is like,
Yeah.
if we give a bunch of people credit cards, they're going to spend them. They're not going to be able to pay them back.
Yeah.
And then they're owe us for life, basically.
And if the money that you are taking in from the loan, you then use to invest in a company, but then suddenly that money's not there from the loan, your investment's not there. The company's been expecting that investment, it collapses too. That's basically what happens, is that bad money that was used to kind of quick sell certain loans was used to invest elsewhere. And it all became a house of cards that collapsed.
Like Kevin Spacey.
Like Kevin Spacey. His own life, of course, is a house of cards.
Yes.
So we basically crawled our way back to fine from there. We haven't actually really recovered. But the stock market has. Which is increasingly disconnected from real economics, which has been a process since the 70s, like we were saying, financialization. Financialization is why how good the stock market is doesn't equate to real success. Like maybe in the 1950s it might have, but because you don't make money on the stock market by making a good company anymore.
So we'll have, which is how you have like startups like in Silicon Valley
Their entire
that don't
business
do
model,
anything.
Yeah, their entire business model is to keep juicing up their stock price, get a
for a
massive
product that
IPO,
doesn't exist.
and then sell themselves.
Which we strongly recommend the Inventor documentary on HBO.
About what's her name? Deep voice girl.
Elizabeth Holmes.
Holmes.
Elizabeth Holmes. She is.
H.H. Holmes.
She says she's an inventor, and there's a documentary about her on HBO, and she creates a machine that could have prevented the coronavirus that she says was going in Walgreenses across the world.
And it just didn't exist.
And it just didn't exist.
Yeah, and she was heavily incentivized to do that by the financialization of capital.
Yeah, she was doing what she was supposed to do as a good capital, and she was called like this genius.
She's called the next Steve Jobs. So the last thing that I want to talk about before we talk about GameStop is I just want to define short selling real quick.
Okay.
Because short selling is not really what's happening with GameStop, but it kind of keeps being described as if it is. Short selling is something that really only stock companies can do, stock brokers can do. Basically, and I have an example that I'll use to make it clearer, but basically a broker borrows some shares of a company. They borrow some stock and they sell it, right? And then they buy them the stock back and give it back to the people that lent it to them. Mm-hmm. The reason that you would do this is if you expect the stock to go down, because then you're buying it back for less than you sold it for, and you're making a profit off of it, and then you give the shares back and you made some money. This is seen as a bad thing to do because it's betting on the failure of a company, but everything on the stock market in the financialization age is bad to do, basically. Yeah. And this is actually a common way to look for fraud, for securities fraud, because people that are shorting things that shouldn't drop but are often are committing fraud. And there's other ways to tell fraud from it. It's actually a good thing for that. But so, an example that I found from Investopedia is if you're an investor and you think that Tesla stock is overvalued at $625 per share, you look at it, you're like, $625 per share? I don't think that's worth that much. Which, by the way, this is what stockbrokers can be doing with GameStop right now, if they think it's going to drop back down. Which they say, I don't think it's worth that much. So let's say they borrow 10 shares of Tesla from their broker, who then sells it for the current market price of $625. So you sell it. You borrow the shares and you sell it. Stock goes down to 500. The investor could then buy the 10 shares back at that price, return the shares back to their broker.
So they're just making it happen.
Yeah, which is a profit of $1,250 at that point per share.
So these people whose jobs are just manipulating stocks and stuff, they can basically just do kind of mafioso moves of just like manipulating these different companies to make a profit, which is so sick when it's like obviously these are big companies that are being traded, like it's not like Tesla's an underdog, but even when we worked for Salt and Straw, the ice cream company, we saw that they were sacrificing the well-being of the stores they actually had because they had to just keep growing, keep expanding, hope that they're gonna, become like a, huge international chain, and treating it like a tech company, instead of just focusing on being a good ice cream company, treating its employees well, so they don't have all these injuries scooping the ice cream. Instead, it's like, how do we expand? How do we open in Disneyland? How do we blah, blah, blah? And it's like, if you have all these stores and all these companies' decisions being made based on these people that are totally disconnected from the actual products and the actual labor, then it's like, which ones get to survive? Yeah. And I'm saying, why did they close down Payless?
Yeah, that's what we're saying.
I need those affordable off-brand shoes.
I also, this is off topic a little bit, but I didn't get into it earlier. Alexander Hamilton is considered one of the founders of Wallstreet as a system. It's not super direct, which is why I didn't get into it in my timeline. I didn't want to muss up with it too much. But basically, he started the U.S. Treasury buying up like wartime debt and selling it, which is more complicated than all of that. But I just want to throw out so nobody gets in my face about like, you never brought up Alexander Hamilton talking about Wall Street.
It was gonna be me. You were
gonna get so mad. So yeah, he did play a role in it, but it's mostly foundational, not active.
He started it, Bert finished it.
That's right. So let's talk about Robinhood and GameStop.
Yeah.
I know you hate it when I do this, but what do you know about the GameStop thing?
Okay, so I did know about Robinhood a little because you got the app.
Yeah, I do.
A while ago, and you were like, "Hey, it's an easy way to kind of do very light investing."
Yeah, make a few bucks.
You don't have really many bucks at all.
No.
Neither do I. Check out my Patreon if you want to support the show.
If you want to support some more, what Jack Allison on Twitter called black-pilled anti-rational investing, then yeah.
No, I do not spend my Patreon money on that. I spend it on snacks. No, patreon.com/Lucia, Lucia, Fasano, Fasano. Thank you very much.
The more you Fasano.
It was like, okay, at first I was kind of sketched out by the app, and you're like, no, it's totally legitimate. Isn't there another one called like Nest Egg or something that
There's a bunch
that puts away your, and so it's like,
SoFi,
it takes like a very, like takes a little amount of your, of money. No, that's the other one. What's that one called?
You're thinking of Acorns.
Acorns.
But Acorns is a different thing, totally different thing.
Okay, well, what's Acorns?
Acorns basically helps you save money by setting up, like, if you pay $4.70 for something, it it has it so that your bank is charged $5.
And it takes that
And
little-
it takes the 30 cents and puts it in an account for you.
That's cool. So Acorn's interesting app. It's a lot of new things like that for helping millennials and Zoomers,
Yeah.
have a piece of the pie. No, not really.
No.
So Robinhood, it's like apparently some interactive app where you can kind of do a little bit of stock trading, right?
Yeah, it's basically it's for what are called retail brokers.
Mm-hmm.
It's for people that just want to do some day trading, just buying and selling some stuff from their phone, usually small amounts of money. Yeah, it's for allowing normal people to play the stock market.
Yeah, and then it seems like last Wednesday, I think all of these crazy things that have been happening have been on Wednesdays. Like every Wednesday of January has been crazy. So luckily my birthday's on Monday. So people were like Reddit stocks or Reddit
Wallstreet bets. R/Wallstreet
bets basically was like, let's choose a company that's not like huge and let's basically focus on that for our investing, right?
Basically, yeah. So Wall Street,
and so that kind of happened basically overnight before Rego normie rich psychos realized hedge fund guys realized what they were doing and then tried to put an end to it.
Yes.
So that's kind of what I know, but I don't,
So Wallstreet Bets is a subreddit that I've actually followed for a little while because I think it's fun. But their whole thing is they're young people who have deduced that Wall Street is a casino.
Yeah.
Wall Street is just gambling. It's, do you think this company will do well or do you think it'll do poorly? Put your money accordingly. And so they approach it purely as a game, which is part of what pisses off mainstream financial guys, because to them it's deathly serious. But these are all, neckbeards that are like, this is a casino. This is a game.
And meanwhile, in a lot of these Reddit neckbeard users, they grew up with what we didn't talk about, I think, with the financial crash was like Obama bailing out Wall Street, basically. Is like there was the crash and then the government...
The U.S. government basically bought up all these bad loans that couldn't be repaid. And in doing so, remunerated the lenders and not the lendees.
And so few people from all of that actually went to jail.
None of them did.
So that's what's helpful about, movies like Wolf of Wall Street and The Big Short.
It's to see that this is institutionally supported and protected.
Yeah.
Because the idea is that these companies...
white-collar crime.
Yeah, the idea is that somebody like Goldman Sachs has so many investments in so many important companies that if it were to go under, if it were to default on all its investments, that like the entire American economy would collapse. That's their argument.
Mm-hmm. So like they should be prioritized to be saved by
and
the U.S. government.
And if that is the case, if technically it is the case, then that company needs to be like nationalized. At that point...
Yeah.
I'm as far as I'm concerned, this is like, kind of a 2012 era slogan, but too big to fail, which is what they called these companies. They were too big to fail. If they failed, everything goes down with them. Too big to fail is too big to exist. If you as a company cannot go down without taking the economy with you, which I mean, like Amazon is probably that right now. Amazon is a company that if it had a financial issue would probably be bailed out because it's such an important part of our both delivery infrastructure, goods supply chain, but also our online infrastructure. Amazon Web Services, basically half the internet runs on it. At that point, though,
same with Google. Like it's
Facebook even.
Like we need Google.
At that point, if you're a company that is too big to fail, then honestly, at that point, you're not even doing capitalism anymore. At that point, functionally, you are a part of the state. You are a part of the financial infrastructure.
And same with a lot of these big banks. It's like Wells Fargo. And all of these banks have committed so much crime, like creating accounts for people that were dead. And
if you are too big to fail,
but they don't get in trouble.
You are no longer part of the market. You are the market. At which point, you should be either broken up into entities that are small enough to fail, or you need to be nationalized. You need to be officially part of the government.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that happened. Happened.
And then, and that was when Occupy Wall Street was a thing.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people say protesters weren't treated as brutally under Obama as they've been treated under Trump. And it's like, that's not true. Like the Obama-Biden administration They were vicious to Occupy Wall Street people. They
yeah.
were vicious to water protectors.
Ferguson.
They were vicious to Ferguson. You know, there's just history keeps repeating itself.
People are memory holding it. Well, it's because I just went with this with a friend of the show, Chris Hott. I mean, basically since like the 60s, most politics have become purely symbolic. Nobody's really even looking for material changes. The last like very serious legislation that materially impacted the day-to-day lives of people were all done from like 65 to 75. Like the Great Society, right, which set up Medicare, Medicaid, things like that. That's important. The end of the draft, that seriously changed people's lives. Lowering the voting age to 18. And there was one more that I'm actually blanking on. Oh, the Immigration Act of 1965. That completely changed our immigration system. All of those are meaningful. But since then, every trend line as far as size of government, as far as investment in the Defense Department, as far as overseas entanglements, as far as wages, as far as employment, all of these trend lines, financialization, all of these have gone in the same direction. No matter who is president or what party controls Congress. Every victory, basically, since the 70s that we've gotten has been through the courts, not politics.
And, you know, a lot of people say, like, I don't understand why people like Bernie Sanders. I don't understand why we need to cancel student debt or why we need Medicare for all. And it's like, there's a reason that he resonates with people. And it's because he, you know, speaks out against this behavior and the cahoots.
He wants to actually materially change things, not just symbolically.
And then also a lot of people say, all Bernie talks about is economic issues. He needs to care about social issues. He needs to care about people. And it's like, for one thing, like, he does, but it's also like economic issues
are social issues.
They are social issues. They are intersectional. It's always this idea of like, it's only like straight cis white men that are on Wall Street that need a job. And it's like, hey, like if we really, take the reins on Wall Street, that is going to help everybody. And it's,
well, and
so
that's
just
part of the symbolization of politics is that there's a whole generation of activists that only are trying to win what are meaningful but functionally symbolic victories. And even then, they can't get it through politics. They get it through the courts. And the courts are not politics, explicitly. They only handle legal questions, not political ones. Anybody who's interested in the increasing symbolization and alienation of politics, I would recommend reading anything by Jean Baudrillard, Society of the Spectacle by Guy Debord, Amusing Yourselves to Death by Neil Postman, and watching the documentary Hypernormalization by Adam Curtis, which I believe is on YouTube.
Yeah,
all of these go very deeply into this idea that we basically, all politics and history has been symbolicized and abstracted since the 1970s, maybe 1960s, and that's why nothing changes. That's why nothing materially changes for the better, even though every election is the most important one in our lives, every year. If you've ever wondered that, if you've ever wondered why, everything keeps getting worse, even though every election is the most important one in our lifetimes, and sometimes we win them, that's why.
Yeah, so next time you're like cooking dinner, if there's not a new episode of Chicken in Every Pod, put on Hypernormalization on YouTube and just
get all freaked out.
And get all freaked out. I mean, when people use the phrase neoliberal, that's become very hot now.
I mean, that's what this is. This is
like
the neoliberal hegemony of the modern world. Like, financialization, industrialization, alienation.
No breathing.
I'm indignation about it.
Yes.
So Wall Street Bets sees that. They understand that this is all stupid. This is all a game.
Yeah.
This isn't real. I mean, it's real, but it's not real.
It's not yeah.
So they start gaming it, and they realize, hey, because remember, these are nerds.
Yeah.
And they're nerds that are usually about my age or a little younger. And they're like, man, remember GameStop? Because the thing is, the choice of GameStop is not arbitrary.
Yeah.
It's because these kids miss a time when you could just go to GameStop.
It was like Blockbuster.
Blockbuster was included in their later suite of ones.
You could go, you could play the game in the store, have fun with that.
You could buy and sell and trade used games, get them
That's
for cheap.
true. Yeah, so that,
So they decided, hey, what if we all invest in Blockbuster? And what happens in the market if suddenly a bunch of people... Oh yeah, I'm sorry, GameStop. What happens to the market when suddenly a bunch of people start buying one company? the price goes up because the market is assuming, and then the market is a hot commodity. It's doing something right.
Mm-hmm. Everyone should do this to Claire's.
That's the girl one.
Well, I mean, I've seen like a lot of people say like you should be able to, you're gonna get your vaccine at Claire's, like how they do your ear piercing.
Yeah, I saw a tweet that was like, "All right, ladies, what company are we gonna fuck up?" Claire's is a great one. But so they all started buying into GameStop, and it shoots the price way up. And some hedge funds are getting fucked by this because they've been expecting to short GameStop. They expected it to go differently, and it got all fucked up. You have Elizabeth Warren now on TV calling this manipulation of the market, saying they need to stop. We need to get back to real, fair market rules.
I thought she supported...
No, she doesn't.
Oh, okay.
She does not support the Wall Street Bets army. But so, yeah, all the Wall Street guys are calling this unfair, even though they do this all the time.
Yeah.
They constantly
just choose a company
and run. That's what Tesla is. That's what Tesla is. Tesla's not worth $600 a share. They're running it up for various reasons to profit off of it. But so they're pissed, and Robinhood, which is this app we were just talking about, the next day stopped allowing sale of primarily GameStop and AMC, which are the two big companies that were targeted. I didn't get it on GameStop. I did get it on AMC. It's since leveled out a little bit. But so, Robinhood is facing a class action lawsuit for this, by the way. Because why would it stop? Why would it stop people from buying and selling these if it's not being told to?
Yeah.
By these big hedge funds, which are investment groups. And then Robinhood started selling people's GameStop stock for them. Which apparently is
without
included,
their consent?
Yeah, which apparently is included in their terms and conditions that they can do that. But people were pissed. And so Robinhood is now allowing, I believe, trades again. But that totally put a stop to it. Because GameStop was about to make a lot of people very rich. A lot of these people that bought it when it was $5 a pop, and now it's $500 a pop. If you bought 100 shares at $5 for, what's that, $20? And then suddenly those shares are worth $500. That's so much more money you suddenly have.
Yeah. Rightfully so.
Rightfully so. That's the game.
That's the game.
That's the game.
Yeah.
That's the game everyone's playing. But so as soon as they stopped trades on them, the momentum just halted. Because other people could still buy and sell elsewhere, but Robinhood's the easiest, and it's the one that most of these people were using.
Because
also Robinhood is free. Robinhood's 100% free to use because the purpose of companies like Robinhood, well, or really just Robinhood itself, is to collect information on what dumb retail traders are buying and selling, and selling that information to the hedge funds and Wall Street companies.
So like
they
most
can see
social
what
media
we're doing.
apps,
Exactly.
where it's like Facebook is free, but you pay every single day with all of your data.
Exactly.
All these companies,
They're a
Twitter
data company.
they're all data mines. They make much more money off that than ads and whatever. Yeah.
100%. So Robinhood's getting sued. Everything's kind of calmed down, but I don't think people have found a new way to fuck with people.
Yeah.
This is a new way to have... I don't think that what happened last week is the revolution, but I think that it showed people a new way to be angry. And what was really freaking people out is that most people that were doing this knew they weren't going to get rich. They were...
trying to prove a point.
Sticking it to the man. Yeah.
Sticking it to the man in the Oasis.
Exactly.
I will add that the thing about intellectual property is the thing that Andrew Yang kind of has the idea of like, hey, you should be able to own and profit. Like, if companies are selling your intellectual property and data, like you should.
The idea is that your data is your property.
Yeah,
your data is your property.
They're making money off of what
you
like to eat for from McDonald's. It's like you should get money off that. Of like, hey, McDonald's, you want to know what I like to eat off your menu?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. By the way, Yang's mayoral run's not going well.
Yeah, it seems like he's kind of sticking his foot in his mouth a lot.
Yeah, he'll probably still win, but but so that's the basics. And the thing is, like, this is going to happen again. Yeah. There's going to be new sort of populist revolts on Wall Street because now people know how to use it as a weapon.
Yeah, and like, people, there's been a lot of like, this is socialism or this is activism and blah, blah, and then other people that are like, no, you're just doing capitalism, yada yada. It's like, the point is just, it's
The point is that
it's a collective action.
and it's fury from the people towards the elites.
Yeah, it's like it's
And
not
it's
necessarily a collective action in a like that it's doing some greater good, but it's
showing a new
everyone
weakness.
working together. Yeah, it's showing the it's holding the mirror up to nature,
up to society.
To
And that's Wallstreet, and that's Robinhood.
Wow.
Do you have any more questions I didn't cover or didn't clarify?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think that's, a good overview, and I think that it brings me joy to see these hedge fund people freaking out. I saw somebody say like that, this is actually affecting regular people's retirement accounts and regular people's money.
Which it shouldn't be, because retirement accounts, people that put their own money into the stock market as retirement accounts, that's one thing. But a lot of companies will invest their employees' retirements into 401ks, which are investment portfolios. Why should it be left to the stock market? Like, why can't you just have retirement in a savings account?
Yeah.
But these companies put it in a 401k because it's cheaper for them. So it's like, that's something we should talk
A
about.
401k is
an investment account. It's an investment portfolio.
So when people say like, I need a 401k, it's the idea is
It's an investment portfolio that will allow them to retire, that will appreciate and value enough.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a promise that is not actually a promise. Like, people don't know when they get older if...
It's a gamble.
I mean,
all
even
stock market
on
stuff is a gamble.
I mean, even on a small level, like, a lot of people have things that they've collected, like jewelry, porcelain things, Beanie Babies.
Oh, Beanie Babies are a great example.
Collector's items, and it's like, they think, oh, I collect these things, I'm going to be able to sell them, make a profit one day,
But
and
if
it's
everyone
like,
does it,
it's worth nothing now.
that's inflation, baby.
What?
Beanie Babies inflated.
So is one of the like things that Bernie and other people say is like, bring back Glass-Steagall.
Reinstate Glass-Steagall.
Reinstate it. We don't have it right now.
No, well, we don't have the main.
We've broken the
proponents of it.
Glass-Steagall.
We have broken the Glass-Steagall.
Hillary broke the Glass-Steagall.
A Clinton did indeed
A
break the
Clinton broke the
Glass-Steagall.
Glass-Steagall. Thanks, Bill. You didn't build that.
You didn't build that.
But he did.
Wow. Yeah, so reinstating basically just increasing oversight.
Yeah, what could help?
Glass-Steagall would be good. Empowering the SEC.
Maybe nationalizing some more companies.
Yeah, I mean,
it's sketch. It can be sketchy.
It can be sketchy. It's probably just all too big. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to do.
It's okay. You're not president. I am canonically, as of the last episode.
That's true. So you got to figure it out.
Oh man, I don't want to figure it out. I want to go golf.
I hope you can also do that.
Ever since I became president in last week's
golf.
episode, ever since I got sworn in, I just golf all the time at
She's
my
loving to
own golf resorts that I own.
Well, so that is Wallstreet. That's her presidency so far. Lucia's presidency so far. That's Robinhood. And if there's nothing else, I think we should sign off because it's almost time for you to party.
Birthday party. Okay, then I'd also like to give a shout out to on our social media. I've posted a picture of Penny sleeping in front of an old postcard with art for socialism, and I've posted some pictures of old-timey Socialist Party ads and workers and union movement ads, and it's really cool. And I just wanted to shout out the Etsy that I got it from, which is called, one moment, it's Karen Emily is the Etsy, CarinEmily. It was like you could get a pack of several old-timey postcards, and I got it to like inspire us when we do the podcast and Kyle teaching history. So that's been really cool. And I also got a picture of one of the founders of the Wobblies, right, Kyle?
Yeah, Lucy Parsons.
Lucy Parsons.
Her
Her name was
WW.
Lucia Parsons, and I was like, I had no idea she existed. She was also an anarchist. She fought with Emma Goldman a lot.
Yeah.
They debated, and she is this really radical, cool lady. So I also got on Etsy from Diasporan Press, got a print of that. So why not support some shop local and get some cool lefty stuff off Etsy.
Yeah, Lefty Etsy.
Lefty Etsy.
Love it.
And check out our new art that we have now on our page from the amazing Ashlyn. And with that, we say good night.
And good luck.
Bark, bark.
Yeah, bye-bye.